Let's talk about method overloading in this video. So what is that? Well, method overloading is when we have a method, let's say good morning, and we have the same method but different parameters, right? We call that a different signature. And we can say something like, this is going to be a string and pass in a name, right? So what does that mean? That means that we have the same method name and we can pass different parameters, right? So at compile time, we can invoke this, right? We're going to invoke this method, and it's going to know which one to invoke based on the parameters. So basically here we can say good morning 2, and this is good morning 1. And here we can just say, hey, if we pass in the name, and we'll see that in a second. Well, now, anyway, we're not passing in anything, so it's going to know that we're invoking, or we should be invoking this method, right, in line number 11. So it should say good morning 1. So let's run this. Let's see what happens. And you can see that we do get good morning 1. Now, if we wanted to get good morning 2, let's just pass in something here and say Michael, right? So if we do that and we run that, let's see what happens. And we see that we get good morning 2. So at runtime, again at runtime, we are determining which method, well, not we, but the Java interpreter is going to determine which method to invoke. So at runtime, it will catch that. And so that is very useful. Why? Well, we're doing that here within the same method. You could do that within different classes as well. You can override a method, right? And you could also overload a method. We'll talk about overriding in the next video. But this is overloading. And just to kind of finish up the loop here with overloading a method, you can have these be changed, right? Like the access modifier, you can swap them. They don't have to be exactly the same. Well, what happens if I do this? Well, if I say something like name, and then what happens if I run this? There you go, good morning 2. And we do get something here. I'm not using it. I'm just getting this yellow underline under name just because we're never using name. But we could say something like this, right? Just to make sure that we're using it and say name, right? And then if we run this, now we'll be able to see the name that I'm passing in, which is Michael. So don't get, that's what this was telling me, that I wasn't using it. This is always Michael. This is what it's telling me now because it is hard-coded. So it is better to, probably make this name an instance variable and then use that instead of always hard-coding this, right? But you get the idea. The idea is that overloading, we can have different access modifiers. It has to be the same name. The parameters could change. And just to state the obvious, if you do hear something like the parameter says, I don't know, a string and then an int, and then you have on this one a int versus a string, that is not the same signature as well, right? The order, in other words, the order of the parameters matters. So this is considered a different method than this one, right? So it would be overloading still. Just to state the obvious, but just to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Int and string versus string int, it's a different order, so therefore we would get a different signature. I hope this helps.